Hi everyone, I'm Jordan Henry here with Ryan Hite at the Phyllis Schlafly Center, and we just want to give you the first of what we hope will be a series of releases on Thursday, where we just kind of take a few minutes to talk about some of the big headlines, what everybody's talking about, and give an Eagles perspective on some of the more fun headlines maybe. Ryan, I noticed that just yesterday during the confirmation hearings for Ketanji Brown Jackson, that she has said she is unable to define the word woman, claiming that she is, quote, not a biologist.
Not a biologist, that's
Yeah.
right. That's right. That exchange, it just baffles my mind to watch someone essentially in an interview for the highest court in the land just refusing to answer such basic questions. I mean, obviously, it comes from a politically driven ideology, but it's just it kind of baffles the mind to see someone refuse to even give some sort of cursory example, but to just ignore the question and push it off. I've heard from a lot of folks that are just kind of embarrassed that this is being allowed to go forward and being treated seriously.
Yeah, it's interesting. I feel like for decades and decades and decades, and Phyllis was talking about this back in the 60s and 70s, there's kind of this disconnect between the ivory towers of academia, where such judges as Judge Jackson come from, and the rest of the country. But a question like this, just in a few words, underscores that disconnect in a way that just resonates so well with people. So I'm very interested to see how people broadly are going to react to this. And you know, you've seen this sort of thing tossed around a lot on Twitter, back and forth. But I can't think of another time where this question and questions like it have been used in such a public official format.
Yeah. And you know, it really, what it reminds me of, and I know you all seen it quite a bit with the archives footage that we put out of Phyllis. She was ahead of her time in saying what was coming with a lot of these radical leftist policies when she fought ERA in the 70s, when she moved into the pro-family, pro-life movement really strongly in the 80s. There were a lot of things that she said would come to pass that, of course, even the liberals of that day said, oh, no, never would anyone. And it has come to be so. And it's just, this strikes me as one of those where now we have a U.S. senator, a woman, actually demanding a very simple answer of what is the definition of a woman, of another woman who is, you know, in an interview to be the next Supreme Court Associate Justice. It's unfathomable that this is even in this setting. And Phyllis warned of all of these things so radical at the time and even now that are coming up. It's incredible to go back and see some of the things that she talked about that we try to put out in the her speeches and in her different interviews. And she was just so prescient. She knew what was at the end of the line for a lot of these arguments then, even when, you know, the liberals of the day said, no, of course, never would that ever come up. And it has. It absolutely has. Look where we are.
Yeah. I would say, too, that I think that this is the perfect gift to anyone who is skeptical of Jackson and wants to talk with the people in their lives, just, you know, sitting across the kitchen table talking about this and where they stand on it. Because this question doesn't stop with this question. This question is a litmus test for an entire ideology. Jackson is acting like you have to be a biologist to know the answer to the question, what is a woman? So, you know, you don't have to be a pure biologist. You don't have to have any degree. I mean, Jackson has placed her understanding on this subject below that of a 5-year-old. So anyone, any rational person discussing this issue should be able to know that this is a red flag, and it reveals her true colors broadly about leftist ideology, because that is the only possible way that you could have your understanding on this question be below that of a 5-year-old. You know, there's biologists, there's, you know, people generally with their understanding about things, there's 5-year-olds, and then apparently way down here there's leftists who have embraced this gender ideology, I feel like. And I think the American people are going to see that.
I was exactly to your point. It doesn't take even a high school diploma to see through the lack of wanting to answer this question and throwing it off to not being a biologist. I truly, I believe, and I think that as we see the reaction to these things, we're reaching a point where so many people, even who've kind of gone along with the political line and just wanted to be left alone, haven't gotten involved. They look at things like this, and even as you know, this very question is put out there and the video surfaces, I think most people look at it and say, really, you're not willing to even this is your excuse? Not even are you not going to answer it, but this is the excuse that we're running with. It's just incredible. And likewise, we were talking about another one, a question that Senator Graham had asked her about the leniency that some are saying she had on those accused of child pornography charges. Her answer was quite revealing. I mean, she's not even talking about, didn't even lay forward the basic principle of let's measure the crime, whether it's accidental or intent. Let's measure the intent in the crime against the punishment that's being handed out. But her answer just kept going, and she ended up describing that, just looking for child porn for 15 minutes shouldn't result in all of this prison time and your life wasted away. And I think, in fact, when Senator Graham responded, absolutely it should, I think most Americans nod along with that, because there's, to the point of not the bee and some others, a murder committed in 30 seconds, the intent and the act behind that, it doesn't matter if it was 30 seconds. The punishment is fitting of what happened, the action you took and the intent behind it. It's just, that is another whole door that we're knocking on of this ideology that goes far beyond even the one question being asked. It's really pretty incredible to hear out of a Supreme Court nominee.
Yeah, and of course, we're not talking about all these things because we just enjoy complaining about it. Although, hey, maybe we do. But still, these are things that you can bring up when you're talking to people about this confirmation hearing. When people are asking you questions, where do you stand on Judge Jackson, on her record, on this, that, and the other, I think that you can very easily say, hey, I heard all I need to hear whenever she can't define what a woman is, whenever she is basically arguing for these lighter sentences that most Americans would strongly disagree with. It is something that can speak to anyone who's having just an honest conversation about this. But we need to be doing more than just having a conversation around the kitchen table too. I would encourage you to find out where your senator stands on this. The Senate is going to be voting on Judge Jackson, assuming that she advances beyond the Judiciary Committee very soon. So whether you have a senator who's on the Judiciary Committee or not, why don't you call them up and ask them how they're planning to vote on Judge Jackson's confirmation. And, while you're at it, why don't you ask them if they can define the word woman?
And it makes a difference.
It does.
It does. As we work in politics, whether it's on the campaign side or the official side or here in an organization, an office of an elected representative getting flooded with calls and emails, it makes an impact, and it makes them pay attention. And remember, this is far from a foregone conclusion, this confirmation of Biden's next Supreme Court pick. The Senate is split 50-50. And if there's one thing we've seen this year, there are at least a couple of Democrats who pay enough attention to their district to know better when something is just too far. And I think you would agree with us that some of these answers and some of the ideology behind it, this is just too far. And I think a lot of senators might feel the heat from that. So don't think that what you do when you call an email doesn't make a difference. It does. It really does. But it takes all of us to do it.
Okay, I think that's all we have time for today. Guys, we'll be back again next Thursday with another video just talking about the headlines. If you like this video, please like, share, subscribe, all those great things so that we can continue to grow our reach here, because it's going to take all of us if we're going to make a difference. So thank you so much, and we'll talk to you next week.